Since the dawn of civilization, humans have shared one obsession: keeping secrets. Not just from enemies, but sometimes from friends, neighbors, and the person sitting next to us who absolutely does not need to know that. From whispers in caves to coded letters between kings to encrypted data racing across the modern internet, cryptography is the story of how far we will go to protect what matters. Encryption is the quiet technology that makes modern life feel safe without asking for applause. And by the end, you will see the real twist. Secrecy is not a destination. It is a moving line that keeps being redrawn. Our first stop is ancient Egypt. Around 1900 BCE, scribes carved altered hieroglyphs into tombs, not because they were hiding military plans, but because they wanted their writing to look special, exclusive, elite. Even in the Bronze Age, people understood the power of controlled meaning. One of the earliest patterns is right there. Change the symbols, and you change who gets to understand. It is not just about privacy, it is about access. Now jump to ancient Sparta, where secrecy becomes practical. Spartans are said to have used a tool called the citale, a wooden rod wrapped with a strip of leather. Write a message across the spiral, unwrap it, and the letters scatter into nonsense. Only someone with a rod of the same diameter can make the message reappear. It is low-tech and surprisingly modern in spirit. The security is not in the ink, it is in the shared shape. And it raises a question that will haunt this whole story. If secrets depend on a shared key, how do you share the key safely? That problem will return again and again in new disguises. Then came Julius Caesar, who conquered territories and also understood something quieter. Information is power only if it stays yours. His cipher shifted the alphabet by a fixed number of letters, so A becomes D, B becomes E, and so on. Simple, yes. Effective, also yes, for the era it lived in. Sometimes security is not about perfect math. Sometimes it is about being just out of reach of the people trying to read your mail. In other words, the Caesar cipher worked because the threat model of the day was not exactly a team of bored statisticians with spare time and a pencil. And then, in the 9th century, the bored statisticians arrived. In the Islamic Golden Age, scholars like Al-Kindi described frequency analysis, the idea that languages have fingerprints. Certain letters appear more often than others. Certain pairs cluster. Once you see those patterns, a simple substitution cipher stops looking like mystery and starts looking like a puzzle with missing pieces. This is a turning point. For the first time, secrecy has a consistent enemy: analysis. And cryptography stops being only an art of hiding. It becomes an arms race with evidence. Here is the uncomfortable truth that follows. Every time people build a new way to conceal meaning, someone else tries to pull meaning back out. Not because they are villains, but because that is what information does in the real world. It attracts attention, it attracts power, it attracts thieves. And as soon as code breakers become systematic, code makers have to evolve. In cryptography, there is no finish line, only the next move. The Renaissance made that evolution feel almost inevitable. Courts turned into intelligence networks. Diplomacy became performance, and performance needed private instructions behind the curtain. Cryptographers began using polyalphabetic ciphers, switching alphabets so that letter frequency gets smeared into noise. Leon Battista Alberti designed cipher disks. Later, the cipher, now known as the Visionaire cipher, gained a reputation as indecipherable, which is exactly the kind of thing you say right before someone proves you wrong. But the deeper point is this. The goal was no longer to confuse the eye. It was to outlast the method. Then the 20th century arrived and secrecy industrialized. World War II produced one of the most famous cipher systems ever built, the German Enigma. It looked like a typewriter, but inside it was a machine for generating staggering complexity. Every key press passed through wiring, rotors, and a plug board, transforming plain text into ciphertext that changed with every letter. The important idea is not the exact number of settings. The important idea is the scale. Enigma turned encryption into a moving target at machine speed. But the story you do not want to skip is how it was broken. Before Bletchley Park became legendary, Polish mathematicians, including Marian Rejewski, had already made crucial breakthroughs against early Enigma and shared their work with allies. That handoff mattered. Then, at Bletchley Park, a larger team combined mathematics, engineering, linguistics, and relentless patience. Alan Turing became one of the central figures, and the bombs and electromechanical device that they built were not magic. They were machines designed to exploit tiny human habits, repeated phrases, predictable formats, the fragile places where people, not algorithms, leave footprints. Codebreaking was not only about math, it was about psychology, and it showed a pattern we still live with. The strongest encryption often fails at the edges, where humans touch it. That wartime work helped shift the war's balance and saved lives, and it did something else that was irreversible. It linked cryptography to computation. When you build machines to break codes, you end up learning how to build machines that do far more than break codes. The future arrives quietly, and then it never leaves. After the war, cryptography moved from gears to equations. Computers turned ciphers into algorithms, and security began to scale with math rather than metal. In the 1970s, the data encryption standard became widely adopted. Later, the advanced encryption standard replaced it, designed to be efficient, widely deployable, and resistant to known forms of attack. If ancient cryptography was about obscurity, modern encryption is about well-studied structure. It is a strange kind of confidence. The best systems are published, analyzed, attacked in public, and trusted anyway, precisely because they survive scrutiny. Now comes the moment that changes the internet. For most of history, encryption relied on a shared secret. If two people want privacy, they need the same key. That sounds simple until you ask the obvious question. How do you deliver a secret key to someone without anyone else grabbing it on the way? This was the old bottleneck. And then, in 1976, Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman published the breakthrough that made public key cryptography practical, while Ralph Merkle was independently studying how to distribute keys over insecure channels. Two people can establish a shared secret without ever sending the secret itself. Here is the modern feeling of it. You can hand the world your lock and still keep your key. That shift is enormous. It turns encryption from a private agreement into a public infrastructure. Soon after, RSA arrived, built on the difficulty of factoring very large numbers. The practical takeaway is not that prime numbers are mysterious. It is that some problems are easy to do one way and brutally hard to reverse at scale. In the time it takes to click send, your device can create structures that would take an attacker an absurd amount of computing effort to undo. Cryptography becomes less like a wall and more like economics. It does not say, "You cannot." It says, "You cannot afford to." And once public key cryptography exists, the modern internet becomes possible. HTTPS, TLS, secure key exchange, digital signatures, all of the quiet plumbing that makes online life feel normal. When you log into a bank, buy something online, send a private message, or simply load a web page securely, you are watching cryptography do its job invisibly. The highest compliment you can pay good encryption is this: you forget it is there. If you start noticing it, something has gone wrong, and you are about to learn the hard way what attack surface means. The best security feels boring right up until you need it. But as encryption strengthened, it collided with another fact of human life. Governments want access. Law enforcement wants tools. Intelligence agencies want visibility. Privacy advocates want protection from abuse and intrusion. Engineers warn that a backdoor for the good guys is still a door, and doors do not stay exclusive for long. That tension, sometimes called the Cryptography Wars, never really ended. It just moved to new platforms, new policies, and new technical proposals. The argument keeps returning because the stakes keep returning. Who gets to read what and when, and who decides? Now we reach the newest horizon, and it is both threatening and strangely hopeful: quantum computing. A sufficiently powerful quantum computer could use algorithms like Shor's to break certain public key systems that the modern web has leaned on for decades. Not because those systems were foolish, but because physics would be offering a new kind of leverage. And cryptography responds the way it always has. It adapts. Researchers are building post-quantum cryptography, new algorithms designed to resist quantum attacks and quantum key distribution, which, in theory, can tie secrecy to quantum physics, even though real-world security still depends on careful implementation. The line moves again, and the world moves with it. Here is the ending that only makes sense once you have walked the whole path. Cryptography is not the quest for unbreakable secrecy. It is the maintenance of a balance, a shifting equilibrium between concealment and discovery, between protection and pressure, between what can be hidden and what can be pulled back into the light. The tools change, from leather straps to rotor machines to number theory to quantum physics. But the story stays human. We protect what we love. We guard what we fear losing. We hide what would hurt us if exposed. Across 4,000 years, one thing has never changed. Secrets do not disappear. They evolve. And the more digital our world becomes, the more that quiet balance will decide what kind of world we live in. Encryption is the promise we keep making to one another, that some parts of life deserve to stay ours. That promise is not perfect, but it is worth defending. From altered symbols to encrypted lives, secrecy survives by evolving. You're always welcome here. At Illumentary,